EnergyAustralia has been great for us because they not only navigate all those tricky compliance issues, but also dealing with various people such as Ergon Energy and other government departments. They also manage the subcontractors as well. They look at the project from start to finish, and where us as operators would overlook things. For example, let's just put a charger in. There's a lot more involved in that. They'll look at the details behind that for compliance in particular.
Tropic Wings is part of the Capta Group, and Tropic Wings has been around since the early 1980s. Capta Group's vision is to be trailblazers in nature-based experiences. This project really fits in well with our company vision. One of Capta's values is to champion sustainability and conservation, but we also thought that it would be much better for our guest experience if we were to have quieter and less emission buses.
Our desire to get into it was the fact that there was no emissions, so no smell, and there was no sound. So being in a tropical North Queensland area, we need to have air conditioning running. Having a vehicle operating and idling somewhere near a restaurant, for instance, was not ideal, and the electric buses ticked that box primarily.
Our first foray into putting an electric charger at our depot here was surprisingly simple and relatively cheap, and that gave us a little bit of an underestimation of how complex scaling up our charging infrastructure would be. Involving partners like EnergyAustralia, we was able to flesh out a more reasonable budget for that. That was very difficult to do just from online research or anything, so having a partner such as EnergyAustralia was very important to have an understanding of where our depots were at right now and what could be achieved and what would be operationally practical. It's all about getting that right balance of having a future vision, because we do want to get up to 80% of our fleet electrified, not having to relay cables or conduits that are unnecessary was very important.
Having gone through this project and come out the other side, we were rather surprised at the complexity involved in putting so much infrastructure into place. When we put our first infrastructure into place in 2018, it was a single charger. It was a fairly simple process. The complexities, particularly the regulatory side of things, trying to put 11 chargers in and 12 electric buses, really surprised us, and it's not something we could have done without support from EnergyAustralia and our partners.
The scope of the project involves dealing with 2 different sites, 3 technically, in Cairns. They're about half an hour apart. One is a tourist destination, rainforest station. The other is a bus depot holding about 30 buses. The Tropic Wings group are looking to electrify their bus fleet. This project is to deal with the first third of that, 12 out of 33 buses more or less. We were looking to not only put in chargers for those buses, but add infrastructure to support them harvesting solar, so utilizing a battery to do that, as well as load management system, and then ATS, so an automatic transfer switch to allow them to operate the site in the event of a grid outage.
One of our catalysts for undertaking this project was the ARENA funding, which contributed to the capital investment of the infrastructure. It certainly wasn't an easy process to tick all the boxes of ARENA, but we were able to prove that this was going to be very innovative. We'd be the first in Australia to undertake electric buses on tourism bus runs and charter bus runs. And what was important was to prove that the operational requirements would still be met by an electric bus fleet.
Having a small operator like Tropic Wings pair up with EnergyAustralia or other energy companies and more experienced companies is a really important aspect to give confidence to the investor community that this can be managed well. It's something that ARENA looks for too. When we provide grants to new innovations, we're always looking for who are we dealing with and what is their capability to deliver. Delivery ability is a crucial aspect to giving everybody confidence that we can do this. There are a few important aspects to this project that make it very unique and an important project to support. Firstly, it's a family-run business, and we know in the transport industry that actually a large majority of the bus operators are small and family-owned businesses. And so getting into that smaller market to support their decarbonisation opportunity and their ambitions is really important. It's also in a tourist area up in Northern Australia, so we've got different temperature environments and a different use case for those types of buses to the metropolitan buses that we've seen grow in their take-up of electric vehicles.
EnergyAustralia took the time to understand our business requirements, and they also obviously have an excellent knowledge of the broader industry and how our requirements would be impacted and how to increase the grid capacity into our depot. They were also able to explain those kind of things to us laymen in pretty understandable terms.
There are a number of design considerations for this site. As we are an existing site, we had to work around our existing operations, the existing buildings that are on site, and in particular, we need to make sure that the flow of traffic was going to work not only now, but when we eventually have the entire fleet being electric.
First advice I'd always give people is to look around the industry and observe what others have done. You may not be leading the pack. There may be others who have tried something like this before.
So it takes a village to an electrified depot. And why I say village, there's a lot of suppliers, stakeholders that we require. Council approval. So if buildings need to go up or down, one needs to go to the council to get that approval before even starting to build anything. Then the key question is, how many buses? Critically, is this your first job of many? So thinking about that planning process, or are you going to from 0 to 100% straight away? Personally, I like test and learn. I want to be able to learn from the electrification process. And then when you go to full scale, you've learned so much. That will determine, depending how many buses you get, for Tropic Wings, it's been 12, the right size transformer. So engaging with Ergon Energy or any distributor, starting as early as you can and understanding, can you get that spare capacity? How much more spare capacity can you get over time? The transformer most likely is going to sit outside of the site. Sweat paths, critically. So that technology is really important. How a bus is going to go in and out. It may be different to the way you run a diesel depot versus an electric depot. The chargers. Do you have time to charge overnight? If you've got a good amount of time, you can get a smaller charger because you've got 10 or 12 hours. If you need dynamic charging where you may need 1 or 2 hours really quickly, a bit like the charter work for Tropic Wings, you put in those larger chargers. Then that starts to work out the placement of the chargers. Perimeter's best, but you may need to go inside. If you need to go inside, you're starting to trench in the middle of your site. So that civil contractor is really important. On the chargers, there are probably 10 to 20 different charging manufacturers you need to engage with, understand their characteristics, understand what works for you. The software on the chargers to actually tell you which charger should be used as different buses come in. Because if you've got different types of speeds of chargers, the ones that need a slow charge will go to the smaller chargers. The ones that need a really fast charge will go to the higher fast speed chargers. Someone needs to install everything for you, so you need to engage with an installer. And then from an energy tariff perspective, at the moment, most depots use most of their energy during the day. And they don't use a lot of energy. You may have your bus wash, you may have your office, you may have your heating that is all electrified. All of a sudden, you are now moving from using most of your energy during the day, and not a lot of it, to lots and lots of energy at night, assuming your buses are out during the day and they come home to charge at night. So getting the right energy tariff to ensure you're buying the right product from your retailer. Remembering that you are going from a garden hose of energy, not a lot during the day, to an absolute fire hydrant. So there are so many stakeholders that one needs to engage with, that they need to coordinate together to electrify a depot.
Our disruption to our depot was surprisingly not as bad as we anticipated. We were thinking we were going to have major problems. With the dedicated team on site, we were able to talk to them, talk through traffic flow, did a bit of a study on how things would work, and good communication to make things happen. So, for instance, most of our buses leave our depot between about 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. So we were able to do most of the civil works after 9 o'clock and before they return in the afternoon. So communication was key in that part of the project. The biggest concerns for us going into this project was probably cost override. Whilst we got some fairly good quotes, we know things change and how we could go about that. The infrastructure we're using is also brand new. Like, this has not been trialled anywhere else. We are the first and the only company in Australia to be conducting tours and charters in electric bus. Hence, everything from the buses to the chargers are brand new. So we had a few concerns as to how that new technology would behave. And of course, we had concerns about disruption to our depot. So EnergyAustralia had some unique problems that we threw at them being in tropical North Queensland. We do suffer storms, cyclones, so all the infrastructure had to make sure that it was weatherproof, particularly the 1 in 100 year flood levels, but also the environment up here can be fairly harsh. So it was about making sure that whatever is in the sun was UV stabilised and making sure that should the worst happen and electricity goes out, then we can still operate. And the collaboration with EnergyAustralia to make sure that we could put a battery energy storage system on site and harvest our own solar led to helping along those lines. Electric buses obviously have a range which we can use them within. We are currently doing base-to-base operations, so the bus leaves the depot, does its route, comes back and gets charged. Considerations for us was making sure that the charges were fast enough to be able to charge that bus quickly. On top of that, we also have 4 portable chargers that run at 22 kilowatts, and they are ideal. They plug into an ordinary 3-phase plug. So if we're doing something further afield, we can take one of these with us. Fits quite neatly into the bottom of the bus, and that will extend our range.
One of the major challenges that the group at Tropic Wings here in Cairns faces is grid outage events. This was brought to life when Tropical Cyclone Jasper landed halfway through this project. The one site that they have up at Rainforest Station was offline from the grid for about 11 days. The automatic transfer switch, which is a fairly complex layer on top of all the other assets they have on their sites, allows for the automatic switchover in a grid outage event to utilize solar and the battery to keep the site running, and supports the decarbonisation agenda where we're looking to make maximum use of renewable energy.
Well, EnergyAustralia is a valued member of the Electric Vehicle Council, so we're very proud to be working with them on this very important arena project. I think EnergyAustralia has expertise and they have a real passion for electrification. And you talk about the traditional relationships between energy providers and DNSPs or distribution networks. Now they have to work together. That's the only way that we can electrify transport. So I think EnergyAustralia has really led the way, has been the leader in this project in working with the different providers and how we can overcome the challenges and provide a solution to make this project work.
What surprised me about this project were the infrastructure limitations, the grid capacity issues, and the complexity of integrating different systems, especially for what seemed to be a clear-cut project. The challenges in this project has pushed us to develop innovative solutions under constraints, which is also one of the most valuable learning experience for everyone.
The biggest challenges we faced on this project group around 3 themes. The first of that is the people challenge. This project had a number of stakeholders, from the customer itself up in Cairns to the main project team being based out of Melbourne, some of them in Brisbane. Other stakeholders were ARENA, who funded a substantial portion of this project, the EVC, the Electric Vehicle Council, or the knowledge sharing partner, as well as a variety of vendors, and then internally us leveraging a major project team. The people challenge revolved around them being based out of different locations. One of the ways that we solved that particular geographical and people challenge was when Tropic Wings suggested that we use a local installer, and we agreed. They were very good. So next door, Babinda Electrics allowed us to be very responsive to site, despite the main project team being based out of Melbourne. So that was the people challenge, a large number of stakeholders across different geographical locations. The second major challenge for this project was around the hardware layer. So both sites have solar and diesel generators. Also, we wanted to add in electric vehicle chargers as well as a battery system. So on top of all of that layer, we added an automatic transfer switch, which allows that electrical installation and those sites to operate in a grid outage event. That added a significant complexity, particularly in the software layer, to make sure that those different assets were capable of being understood and then talked to in that scenario. So that was the hardware challenge for us. The final challenge was the customer operations challenge. So allowing the sites to operate while we were installing. The site up at Rainforest Station in particular had a large number of visitors coming in and out of that site. We necessarily needed to do substantial amounts of trenching, laying of cables, relocation of different assets, and then of course the site down in Cairns itself, their operational issue was the movement of buses across that site while we were trying to lay cable and trenching. One of the ways that we solved that was to use underboring for different parts of this project, and that allowed the continuation of operations while we laid cables underground to bring the project to life.
What surprised me most was the level of complexity integrating EV chargers with the existing site infrastructure. And what I learned from this was to be agile and adapt to the technology change as the project progresses.
It was important to have a dedicated team looking after this project, both coordinating a large number of people and vendors and stakeholders, as well as looking after a number of design issues right across the scale of this project. So EnergyAustralia is used to running long-term projects that span several years with maintenance decades after. The important thing about the green transport team is that it brings continuity across that entire spectrum of project from design through to installation, particularly when one of the vendors went into liquidation. There was a whole raft of design issues that needed to be handed over to another vendor. So the green transport team brings a continuity and a central point of control across multiple stakeholders in this event, and that had value.
We planned the project in a way to make sure that Tropic Wing always have access to key personnel and technical expertise as it's needed. Plus, we organized regular site visits to make sure that we are available on site during major activities.
From a Cairns region, this project has been very significant. We are in one of the biggest World Heritage areas in the world. We have the Great Barrier Reef to one side and we have the oldest living rainforest to the other. So we are very conscious of making sure that we don't continue to put emissions into the environment. Our belief is the easiest way to cut emissions is don't produce them in the first place. And so therefore we have invested in a series of electric buses. We are the leader in this field, which puts Cairns and tropical North Queensland, one of the premier areas for visitation to tourists in Queensland, fairly and squarely on the environmental map.
The impact of this project on the environment in Mount Cairns, some of it is direct. So where you see the electric vehicles traveling around, there's less pollution, it's less noisy. It's a great experience, both for tourists as well as for the drivers. The other impact of this project is less visible, but also important. With the automatic transfer switch, the battery, and the way that we structure the electrical infrastructure, we're able to harvest solar in a time when grid outage events would normally prevent the utilization of that solar. In Cairns in particular, they suffer grid outage events. It's fairly common actually, and so it is a material impact being able to utilize that solar, which would normally just be lost.
Our customers love the electric buses. Once they get on them and there's no noise and they're comfortable, they are quite amazed at them. A lot of people, when the bus turns up, they don't realise it's electric. And then we've had comments like, are you going to start the bus? And we go, the bus is running. So being received very, very well. And we've actually received new contracts because we have electric buses, and that is what those clients want.
Transport represents about 20% of Australia's domestic emissions. The other sad fact is that transport emissions have been growing, not declining. And so very soon, as the electricity system decarbonises, we're going to find transport as one of the largest emitting sectors in the economy. So it's critical that we get on this journey, that for our net zero ambitions that we tackle the transport emission sector, and certainly in the heavy vehicle space, buses, heavy electric vehicles and the charging infrastructure, those are crucial enablers to the decarbonisation of transport.
Consideration for operators looking to electrify their depots is to make sure that they bring on board right at the start of their project experienced partners. So people who understand electrification, who understand their business. There are a number of moving parts that all have to be integrated together, and the faster or the earlier that you bring on experienced partners into that process, the simpler your entire project will end up being. It is going to be harder to learn those lessons along the way. Hopefully through the completion of this project, we will have learned lessons so that others don't have to.
Grid, grid, grid. The key learning from Tropic Wings, I used to say, when you start testing out your buses, start talking to your distributor. And whether you use a company like EA or another engineering firm, engage with your distributor. I now say start early. The distributors are there to help you. They're your friend. They're going to get you the energy to your sites. But there is a planning process that they need to go through. They know not only do they need to consider what do you need for your particular site, but how is it going to impact everyone around you? Having enough time to plan your infrastructure, plan your grid connection is critical. It's also critical to the upstream assets that will go into your site. The main switchboards, the cables, and of course, do you have enough grid capacity for your chargers?
My advice to other operators that are keen to getting into the electric vehicle space is start simple, start with 1 or 2 buses and build some experience, and very early in the piece get on board with a supply partner so that you can address any of those concerns. But start small, start now, and it's well worth the journey.